It's been a while since we had to deal with a menacing government agency, so let's change that. Here are 19 reasons to read The Institute. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I'm talking to you about Stephen King and giving you 19 reasons to read each and every one of his books. If that sounds like something you would like more of, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, click around, see what else you find, have a look at the specials, including my ultimate guide to the Dark Tower. And, of course, don't forget to sign up to my newsletter so you get weekly updates and free short stories and indie horror recommendations from me, and you get my mini collection Mirrored plus 10 Tiny Tales of Terror as an ebook for free just for signing up. The link is right there and down there too, okay? In this video, we're rounding off the 2010s with 2019's The Institute. I'm going to give you 19 reasons to read this one, and I'll cluster any spoilers together at the end and give you warning before they come, so you can dip out if you need to dip out. But otherwise, let's get started. Here are 19 reasons to read The Institute. Okay, so here's your checklist for The Institute. Kids with superpowers, telly whatnots. Check. Kids with superpowers banding together to fight evil forces. Check. Evil forces being a sort of weird government agency that kind of resembles the Shop. Check. And even a bit of Maine woods and a small town towards the end of the book too that we get to later on. Check, check, check. Yep, we are on solid, constant reader territory with this one. In fact, let's jump right into the hook of this one. So in the middle of the night, Luke Ellis is asleep at home and some intruders come into his house, murder his parents, kidnap Luke and take him off to the titular institute, which is hidden away in the Maine woods. When Luke wakes up, he's in an exact copy of his bedroom, except it doesn't have a window. When he goes out of his room and realizes he's in the institute, he soon finds lots of other kids there, all of whom have been stolen from their parents and all of whom have special powers. He also learns that there are two parts to the Institute. There's the front half, which is where Luke and his new acquaintances are, and then, well, there's the back half. And nobody ever comes back from the back half. Luke is pretty desperate to escape and get out and get back to his normal life, but also, no one has ever escaped the Institute. But before Luke's story, we actually get a few chapters of a completely different story. We meet Tim Jameson, who gives up his seat on a plane and ends up in this random little town of Dupree, where he eventually settles and takes the job of night knocker. Nope, still don't know what a night knocker is. Anyway, this kind of table setting and small town environment is really good and really captivating. And then we jump to Luke's story and we don't go back to Tim for hundreds of pages. It's kind of frustrating, but also okay at the same time. So back onto Luke's story and the scenes where he is sort of hesitantly getting to know his new institute roommates. King is brilliant at writing young people thrust together in a shitty situation, which is exactly what we get in the Institute. Those scenes where the kids are getting to know each other are kind of cute, kind of heartwarming, but also a little bit tense the whole time. You never quite fully relax in those scenes. And one of the other kids is called Avery, one of the coolest names I've ever heard. I even campaigned for my second child to be called Avery, who was born last year. Now, I didn't quite win that election, but hey, it's still a banger of a name, and more than good enough to warrant its own reason to read this book. Also, while we're talking Avery, that kid is a fucking hero. You're gonna love him. Now, I already mentioned how Luke wakes up in the exact replica of his bedroom. It's creepy and really unsettling, and of course, harks back to one of the most iconic scenes from one of the most iconic movies ever.
Does this seem weird to anybody else? I mean, we're looking down on Wayne's basement, only that's not Wayne's basement. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's weird, man, that's weird. Garth, that was a haiku.
Yeah, Wayne's World, obviously. So while we're talking characters in the Institute, we have to mention Mrs. Sigsbee. She is the baddie. She's in charge of the Institute and she is a classic King villain. She is scary, she is intimidating, but she runs on a false throne of fear and she's actually cowardly and pathetic. You're going to love hating her. Now, I remember this book generating a real buzz online, and I think it was a combination of a few factors. There's a real Stranger Things vibe with this one, or at least I think there is. I've still not watched Stranger Things, don't at me. But there's also the very on-the-nose political nods in this. This is a story about kids being ripped away from their families at a time when the then President of the United States was doing exactly the same thing. But since then we've had COVID, and this one seems to feel like it's been a bit forgotten, which is a shame because there are some really good moments in this. And for an entry point into King, particularly perhaps for a younger reader, this is a really good starting point. I'm going to mention Stranger Things again. Yes, I know I haven't seen it, but from everything I've read about this and everything I've seen online, if you're into all of the weird goings on in Hawkins, you will enjoy The Institute. Now, it feels like a waste of a point to say that the reviews of this were good, because these days, big artists like King, they always get good reviews because everyone's too scared of offending those big artists and maybe not getting their hands on the next advanced review copy or getting an interview on the next press run. But the reviews for this actually felt genuinely good. They weren't just clickbaity things to get people looking so that they could keep the big artists happy. They did feel like real positive reviews. Obviously, with reviews, take them with a pinch of salt. But this one, the hype did feel real. In fact, one headline for one of the reviews really did make me laugh. It was from the Sunday Times, and it said in its headline that now King is too versatile to be pigeonholed. Now, the review is behind a paywall, and I didn't read it because fuck paywalls, but seriously, it took them until 2019 to realise how versatile King was? Where were they in 1982 when different seasons came out? Or the many, many different books he's put out since then? As we've seen in recent editions of these videos, again, the Institute takes us to some different states. We get South Carolina and we get Minneapolis, as well as a bunch of the story being set in Maine, of course. Now, actually, I'm quite enjoying getting to see different parts of the US through the eyes of King, even if it does mean a few less ayahs as we go through the story. Ayah. Now, before we get into spoiler territory, it's worth noting that the TV rights for this book were snapped up pretty much straight away. David Kelly and Jack Bender supposedly involved. Now, there's not been much talk about progress of that since, but I really do hope it gets made, because actually, I feel like The Institute is one of those rare instances where a really good TV adaptation could actually be better than the book. That's not to say the book is bad by any means, but it just feels like it would work even better as a visual show. Okay, we're entering spoiler territory now, so if you've not read The Institute yet and you don't want anything spoiling for you, then maybe bail out here and check back in for the next one, and I will see you soon. Otherwise, stick around because I've got a few more reasons for you to read The Institute. So this is the first time I've stood up for one of these videos, and I really don't know what to do with my hands. Hopefully, the next few weeks, I'll work out what to do with these things. Otherwise, I'll just stand like this. Let me know in the comments what I should do. Hands or no hands. So I'll level with you on this one. The Institute didn't really live up to the hype for me. I enjoyed it a lot while I was reading it, but it was a bit of a bubblegum book. Nothing stuck. The flavour just went away as soon as I was done. Now that might just be me, but I'd be curious to hear what you think of The Institute if you've read it. Let me know in the comments. So what I do like about this is that after pages and pages of really delicious slow burn, the final third of this book just goes all out. Luke escapes the Institute, makes it all the way down to Dupre, South Carolina, meets up with Tim from those earlier pages, and we have a full-on whole town shootout, a bit like the Bradley Gang massacre in It, or that moment in Hot Fuzz where we realise that everyone has a gun and is trying to take out the policeman.
No, there are more guns in the country than there are in the city.
Everybody and their mums is packing round there.
Like who?
Farmers?
Who else?
Farmers' mums.
Also, Avery. Now, if you're looking for something grim in this one, the earlobe removal scene. Oof. Finally, there aren't loads of real Easter eggs in this one, but there are plenty of tenuous ones. So much, in fact, that I'm going to have to keep glancing down to my list off down there because I can't remember them all off the top of my head. Anyway, let's go through what we've got. We've got lots of references to insomnia, dead zones, and working the night shift. We've got the phrase dead is better. We've got talk of red balloons and clowns. We've got the phrase a good luck talisman. We get the word palaver, we get talk of slippage, like in Black House. The boat that Luke uses is the SS Pokey, which is a bit like Lloyd's gun in The Stand. There's a passing mention of Jerusalem's Lot. There's a character talking about being on the beam. Still more. There's some characters who are like twins in some old horror film. One of the other characters has half and half hair, a bit like Cynthia Smith from Rose Madder and Desperation and the Regulators. The town has a population of 1,369, which, as you probably already worked out, adds up to 19. And my favourite, a radio show about walk-ins called The Outsiders. So there we have it, 19 reasons to read The Institute, a book that, actually having gone through all that, there's probably a lot more positives than I remember, but at the same time, I don't remember much about it. So has it aged well? I don't really know. Let me know what you thought of this one in the comments. And don't forget to sign up to my newsletter, where you'll get lots of useful updates from me and my collection Mirrored plus 10 Tiny Tales of Terror for free as an ebook, just for signing up. The link is down below in the comments. Now, if you enjoyed that, there's plenty more for you to explore here. Lots of 19 reasons to read and lots of specials as well, including one I did recently on King and music, which is a fun one to check out. And if you want to come and say hi on Instagram, I'm at Dave Musson, always happy to chat King with you. Next up, well, the Institute means we are done with another decade, so that means we've got to rank it. I'll see you for that.